it may come through the video, but like our relationship is like something special. I love this. Like, not only is he my little brother, but I can genuinely say like he's my best friend. And that's the thing I think he and I both share is like when we have an interest in something or something that we are a developing passion, it's like we obsess, and it's like diving in
kind of bad.
head first. Honestly, I think it is. I think it can be bad. It is. I told you, there's a level of OCD to it. Hot take. I don't want to offend, but there are people that I think are just they're serial killers that want to just kill. I'm like, yo, it's like they reference it. Oh, he's a killer. He's a killer. He just goes and kills.
Hey, what is up, good people? It is William Alderman checking back in. We are not doing a shooting video. There will be some shooting kind of mixed in, but just want to introduce you guys to my brother, Tripp. So he came down for the weekend, and we've been wanting to record some videos and actually get some community shots. I know I've shot him out a few times in regards to us shooting together, but you guys have never met him. So this is Tripp. You can introduce yourself, say what's up, whatever you want to highlight.
What's going on? My name's Tripp. I'm this guy's older brother. I can't say bigger anymore because he stole my birthright of the height. You know, I'm still very, very upset about that. But no, yeah, I'm just happy. Was able to make some time. It's been a long time coming, you know, and yeah, I'm happy to be here, shoot some bows and talk archery and talk about the hobby and how we got into it and all in between. So I'm excited.
And as he just highlighted, obviously we're going to talk a little bit. This is going to be kind of like more so his introduction to the channel, if you will, just so you guys don't just see a random person just kind of pop up and you're like, who is this person? But with all that being said, just like you said, we're going to kind of go over the history, kind of like my first, how I started shooting, and kind of go from there. So we're going to start off with kind of childhood. If you could highlight kind of some of the stories that kind of, the things that we used to get into, and even the things that Dad has built for you, things that you got into, just kind of highlight that.
Yeah. So archery has been kind of indirectly, directly in our family for a long time, not as a hobby or anything like that. Growing up, obviously, with me being the firstborn, it kind of started with me. In our household, it was the Disney Robin Hood with the fox, and then on a more serious level, the early '90s Robin Hood with Kevin Costner.
Same thing.
And that was on repeat, man. Those VHSs got wore out, and around I think I was like 5-ish. I just remember watching that movie, and my dad would get these like wild hairs where he would just be really into I mean, he was a great dad. He was always playing with us and outside and stuff, but he would be way more hands-on with like, you know, toys and just being in nature and stuff like that. So one day he was just like, you want to make a bow and arrow? And I'm like, yeah.
See, I didn't get that.
Yeah, he didn't get this.
I had to go build all my stuff by myself.
We'll get to that part. But this is how it all started. So we went out, and he was like, you got to find the right stick for the bow. And we found one that had like a slight curve to it. And he was like, this will work. And we went inside. He took like a house knife, which my mom would have been pissed, and cut notches in the top and the bottom. He's like, all right, we got to find a string. And I remember my dad played basketball. And he found one of his old pairs of shoes he wasn't wearing anymore. Took the shoestrings out of that, tied knots in it, and basically just slid them into those little slits on the opposite ends of the stick. And he was like, here, try that out. And, you know, I'm pulled it back, and I'm like, this is cool. He's like, all right, so now you got to go find your arrows. And I'm just, you know, 5, I'm pretty sure I was 5 or 6. And I'm just scurrying around outside looking for the straightest, you know, branches I could find. Little branches, you know. And basically rinse and repeat. He's like, I'm going to let you do that. So I ran out there and came back with about 5 of them, and he cut little notches in those, and, you know, he put a pillow outside, and he was like, yeah, here you go, try it. And I remember just pulling back and shooting, man. And that was, after that, I was like, this is so cool. And my friends were jealous. I had this thing wrapped around my shoulder, around my back, riding around with these sticks in my pocket. And so that's kind of how it all started, and then it never ran away. Like
we built swords.
Yeah. So what happened? William came along. Actually, we'll give you the long-winded version. I'll try to abbreviate it. But for me personally, I actually had a youth like compound bow.
Really?
Yeah. When we lived on the house we lived in Winston-Salem before we moved to Florida.
I didn't know that.
We had those next door neighbors with the old lady, with Kelly and Casey, her granddaughters.
I blocked all that.
Yeah, see, and they had a son. There was a grandson, Blake, who was their cousin, but it was somehow, whatever. Anyway, we showed up from running errands one day, and he was just shooting this bow and shooting like sticks and random objects in the yard. And I just remember seeing like, this is so random inside baseball, but like I just remember it like launching the arrows with like authority.
Yeah.
And I say arrows, he was launching like sticks and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, that is so cool. Like that's going way faster and cooler than these stick bows I used to play with. And I came out and he was like, Tripp. I was like, Blake. And we were playing with it, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I was asking where he got it, and he was kind of disinterested, honestly. I think he was more excited to just play with a kid, you know, another boy.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, and he was like a little hustler. I remember another little tidbit. He's like, dude, if we take cans, we can make money recycling.
Hustling.
But he thought it was the actual, like, the can opener part.
Oh, the tops.
The
People
tops.
would make necklaces with.
Right.
Stuff.
And so we were going around people's trash and peeling those, but it's the whole can.
Yeah, you need that.
I thought that was so crazy. So we spent forever. We had back. Anyway, so he was just, that was his mindset. So he offered to like sell it to me. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, like, yeah. And I remember being like $10 or something like that. He asked his grandma. My mom asked if it was okay. And we did that. And then they took me to Walmart to get the, you know, those like cheap wooden multicolor fletching arrows.
This man got a whole different set of parents.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And William was like, yeah, dude. So we went and I got like two of those.
Not at all.
Exactly. So I had like two of those. And this was the cool part. My dad made a target with a box. He took a Sharpie and drew on it. And I was shooting that outside and had that until I didn't. It's one of those things where you don't really know what happens.
Just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, and I think what happens.
It.
Yeah, I think we had like mom and dad were purging stuff when we were moving to Florida. So I think it just sort of made its way into a yard sale or something. So, but then the flash forward to when this kid was more cognitive, this was like Florida days, I kind of passed that down to him because he had a big interest in all that stuff. Again, Lord of the Rings was now peak. You know, Legolas was like really cool, making it just shooting a bow look awesome. And he was really into it. And I showed him the same thing that my dad showed me, or our dad showed me. And this is where William, I mean, you guys that are subscribers or new viewers to the channel, you know how cerebral he is. He's all about just optimization and just refining things until they just perform at a high level. And he kind of hit the ground with it. I remember I showed him, he had like the initial one that I made for him. And then he like looked at it and was like, huh, okay. And I would like, I had practice. I was kind of entering in late middle, high schoolish, junior high, that kind of age. So I was kind of phasing out of stuff.
I just got to middle school.
Yeah, so, but he was like in it, man. I remember I came home one day and he had like this arsenal laid out of like stick swords he carved up to be really sharp. He had a bow and I don't know if he stole these from like some construction site, but he found these like fiberglass shafts that he sharpened and turned those into arrows. And I remember he was shooting into our closet and they were legit sticking into our wall. Like the velocity, these could like hurt somebody, like legit. And he would go out to a tree. I was like, let me see this. And shot it at a tree. So it was janked up. Like we had so many holes
I
in
know
that
we
wall.
got fees for that.
Dude, straight up. Maintenance was like, what were they doing? But no, this arrow like stuck into a tree, man. These like shafts that he was making, and and one of the things I do have to say for William that I wanted to encourage when we were younger, me being the older brother, which was like, if you love something, like sell out to it, you know, 100%. And when you're at that age, especially middle school, you know, a lot of people are hitting those crossroads, right? Where like certain things that you thought were cool are no longer cool anymore. You know, girls come into the picture, you know, sports are sometimes getting a little more serious, which all this was happening for me. And I tried to live in this, but I definitely wanted to encourage it more for you, which, you know, when you're 10 years old running around with a bow and arrow and stick swords in your belt, you know, it's not that cool, you know? And so he got a little pushback and it was like, no, man, like they're looking for, the people around you are just looking for an excuse to be able to embrace and enjoy the things that they love. And so he wore it on his sleeve, man. Like he would, 11 years old, riding around with these stick swords and, you know, a bow and stuff like that, man. And it was just like, I remember and then seeing his friends warm up to that. And it went from like, oh, this is stupid, like, it's so dumb, to then begging him.
Can you teach me how?
A waiting list to teach him how to build it. Yeah, dog. Like, and that was the thing, man. And I think from then, you know, it really shaped and I think instilled in William like this level of like leadership and being sort of at the tip of the spear of certain things, and he's ran with it. And I've just always been impressed with him to be able to live in that, man. But that's like the beginning, I think, of all the Bo stuff. I don't think it really just appeared out of nowhere.
Because I don't know where in the world, like, it's funny because, like, as the younger brother, like, to me, it was always just like run full speed ahead and just try to be the best you can be. Like, be better than him.
Yeah.
Like, I've said that before. I looked at my dad when I became a parent, and I was like, I'm going to be a better dad than you. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to be a better dad than you. And then when I think about my brother and just the things that he's done along the way, like, not to, like, gush over any of that, but it's, like, legitimately, it's pretty cool just to know that, like, there's good relationships out there. Like, and then when I hear him talk about, like, how actively he was thinking about those things, like, I know I think about that when I'm raising my child, but I wasn't thinking he was thinking that. Like, I've never heard you say that. So it's like to hear that you were like, no, I wanted you to be, like, free in who you were. Yeah. Because I was definitely the almost coolest geek you'll ever meet. Because being homeschooled, like, not being around a bunch of kids, like, you don't get the same type of social environment, but I was playing sports. So like, I always thought that was kind of how I maneuvered and kind of balanced between the two. But that's enough on the soapbox. But there is something that I always think is funny whenever I think about, like, archery, right? Yeah. So like going from, like, the sticks and then going into adulthood, I know for me, like, the biggest thing was, like, it was never that I felt I had a love for it or I just didn't have the money. Like, I just really, and it was like athletics was taking priority, and when we don't have money and we're living off ramen noodles and PB&J for, like, my whole, like, high school career, like, that was the last thing I was going to do is ask for something outside of the cleats that I was running holes into. And so when I got into the adulthood, I still, to me, you know how my mind works, kind of ball on a budget, build up, start from scratch, and kind of go from there. And I noticed, like, obviously with your transition, I know we've talked about it a lot, but I think it's hard for sometimes, even for me, when I watch, like, viewers are watching YouTube, and so this is on purpose, but when I watch YouTube, sometimes it's hard to see guys that always seem like they have the newest stuff. Like, oh, they went super bougie, like, oh, you didn't need all that. Like, man, now I feel like I should, but I don't really want to. Like, and I start, like, piecing out and pricing out people's gear. Obviously, with your situation, what you did, you balled out. Like, you went kind of full tilt. And obviously, we're adults. Like, you can kind of budget your money. But if you could just kind of bridge that gap, like, your mindset, like, why you did what you did, because I know we talked about getting an older V3X, not a V3X, but a VXR, actually. I think you were looking at, like, a green one at the time that we actually had in the cart on eBay.
Ready to go.
And just kind of hit on, like, kind of those high points, because I think that's also, like, super important for people to hear. Like, you start watching YouTube and you're like, oh, like, I need the latest and greatest. And I think it's super important to understand the whys the jump happen, not just the what, like, what you have. You can talk about your bow if you want to, or you can just talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Totally up to you. But I would love for you to kind of touch on that for anybody, the few guys that will run across this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it all depends, right? It's how well do you know yourself, I think is the first part. I know myself pretty well. I'm very self-aware. And when we really kind of, when I started, I don't know how to really get into it. I guess to a quick backstory, I guess, again.
For sure.
Initially, I wasn't the one that I was pushing. So I guess I kind of have to get into this a little bit more. So even more lore going back. So when William actually got back into archery, because all this is important. I was in my 20s. He was in college or wrapping up college.
I just graduated, actually.
I was finishing
up arena time.
Got you.
Football was hanging up.
Right. So, I was mid-20s. I think I was 26-ish, maybe 25. And he was in his early 20s, finished up college. His now wife at the time, I think was wife. I mean, was it fiance? She was married?
No, we were married at the time.
So, but he was pursuing arena football. All that aside, we never got to live together, but the closest, and we wanted that for a while, to room together. So the goal was to, like, spend as much time before life took us our separate ways together. And William, while we were doing that, I was living with my roommates. He was with my parents at the time, pursuing the football dream. But he had the bow. I'm not sure if it was gifted to you, the first one.
No, Facebook Market.
He bought one off
Martin Panther.
So it never left. The interest of it, he always found it like really cool and like invested and spent money. I think he's trying to look for it right now. There it is. There it is.
The baby.
Yep. And I remember, and like, can I see it real quick?
Yeah.
So the funny thing that I remember is like, he asked me, he was like, hey man, you want to come shoot with me? And I'm down to just spend time. I think it may come through the video, but like our relationship is like something special. I love this. Like, not only is he my little brother, but I can genuinely say like he's my best friend. Like the way we talk, it's like every day. And that's why archery is such a big thing with us. But anyways, that's a tangent I'll get back into later. But the funny thing is, I'm like, yeah, dude, I'll go shoot with you. You know, we went to USF, their athletic area where they have these open fields. Yeah. And he pulls this out of his trunk. And one, it's already a little heavier. Target. Yeah, exactly. And already I'm holding it, you know, and this doesn't have the string. It's like it's popped or something.
It's broken.
But my frame of reference is just the single string, right? Yeah. And maybe as, you know, as I learned later, like cams, right? That was like, that's it. This thing had these cables, this string. Already it was kind of daunting. I didn't understand how it kind of worked just looking at it. So that was the first part. He's like, here, try this. We knocked the arrow. And I remember being like, and I couldn't draw back, as a lot of people, when they're first getting into compound bows, you know, that's the learning curve, right? It's like how to draw properly. And he was, you know, he's laughing, and, you know, we tend to roast each other quite a bit, you know, when we're in our competitive minds. So he's like, wow, you really can't pull that back? That's crazy. Wow. And I'm like, you know, I could pull it. Bro, give me this. Give me the arrow. So I draw it back. And when I get back, I'm like, uh-oh. And he's like, yeah, and I'll put it to your face. And I'm like, what? And I didn't understand, like, anchoring. Like a bow, I guess I was shooting bows way too short for me. Again, you're ignorant as a kid. You don't know. And everything was in front. Yep. When I'm drawing back and this thing's back here, I'm thinking this thing is going to whack my face. It's also maybe going to hit my arm. Yep. And the amount of, like, force that it took to pull it back, I know it's going to send that energy right back. And I know that in my mind, that was a recipe for disaster. So I ended up, I'm like, dude, I don't want to shoot it. And he came behind me. It was like, help me let down. And that was it. I was like, man, you go ahead and shoot. And I remember, I think I was just kind of like talking like halfway out the side of my, you know, mouth while he was shooting. And I was just on my phone for the next hour while he just launched arrows. So he got into it pretty, like he got into it early. And that's sort of the initial
$40 bow.
Yeah, and then like I said, that year or however long it was when he was in Florida, I was in Florida. I was starting to date my now wife. He was already married or engaged. Yeah. So he ended up moving back to Tennessee. I was in Florida. My wife is a college professor, so we moved around. Yeah. All this gets to a point, I promise. But my wife is, I tease her, she's like a closeted prepper almost. She loves the idea of like self-sustainability, gardening, growing your own food and stuff like that. Yeah. So when William started showing interest or expressing and showing how he was into hunting and everything and using a bow, that was perking her ears up. And so that was sort of initially how it started, was like, hey, you know, my brother's really into that. He's super knowledgeable. You know, it's almost one of those like, hey, you know, they already have a good love for one another. But I was like, that would be awesome for my brother who loves to share and teach, to pass something on to my wife who she enjoy. So we ended up getting her like an Amazon, I don't even remember the brand. Dragon or something like that. Yeah, and it was like, cool. Got that for her.
Did we get the tide weed? Oh, no.
No, so I'm actually, I kind of skipped a little bit.
No,
so,
you're fine.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Yeah. So then they kind of were shooting, and when we came over to their house, where we're at now, we came for a visit. Or you came over here. I think you came to my house. I think you came over to our house. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We got together. He brought over like this other like eBay, Amazon special Tide Wee bow. Basically set it up for my draw length, and we were all out there shooting. Yep. Another tangent is I'm a huge aesthetics person, as you know. The looks of something are very important to me. Yeah. And I think this was the first time I saw your V3X. You brought it out of the car, and like, you know, you have you have the Excel sight on there, which has that carbon rail. Yep. You know, the stabilizers were on it. He had custom strings on
Carbon
there.
that belongs on the hood of a car.
You know, I was huge into cars. I was a racer boy all through high school in my 20s. So there's just all that stuff. Like, aesthetics are a big deal. And I just remember that bow was like, oh, that looks something serious. Like, that's cool looking. Like, that's really cool. And so they were out shooting. I was shooting the Tiger Week. Anyways, that's what sparked it for me.
Yeah.
And I think I hit, you know, a few X's. And I was like, woo! Like, he was like, yeah. We were just sitting there like a proud dad, like watching his son like run for the first time or something. Like,
well done.
Yeah, dude. Like,
well done, young
now
man.
you're experiencing it.
Well done.
Yeah, and I was like, man, this is, you know. And then he was like showing me the differences in releases. I was using a wrist strap. He had the True Ball at the time, and I could just feel the quality of that thing. And now my brain is firing. It's firing. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay. And we went home. And, you know, I started doing my deep dives. Like, and that's the thing I think he and I both share is, like, when we have an interest in something or something that we are a developing passion, it's like we obsess. And it's like diving in head first. Honestly, I think it is. I think it can be bad. It is. I told you, there's a level of OCD to it. And I'm like, so many things that are like, I didn't have context for because I was ignorant. But as I'm doing the deep dive, I was like on Archery Talk, like, YouTube.
Bro. I'll never forget. He like, sorry to pause it, but he was like doing YouTube. He like sent me a video, and he was like, "Wait, you went to this?"
Oh, I can say
that. It was a video of Tap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Him and his wife, when he talks about like self-sustainability, like we were never people that just went on hikes. Like, we worked out hard and chilled hard. Like, we were playing our video games, we watched a ton of anime, but when it was time to go, we hit the field hard and stayed there for 4 hours, and then 4 hours more inside and just chilled and did whatever we wanted to do. And so when he was on YouTube and sent me the link, I literally called him. I was like, bro, what are you doing right now? He's like, bro, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of lit. Like, dude, what is this about? Tell me more.
I remember it because I was literally like, because another little side tangent. Again, I was in Oklahoma at the time. My wife and I, we moved around. She's a college professor. It's a competitive field. We were moving around almost like a military family. And as he got the V3X. Again, we didn't live together, so I didn't see it. I remember him telling me like, oh, I'm going to this event, you know, and there's no context. So I'm like, oh, you know, you like it, I love it. That's sort of my energy with everything.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you, man.
Good
like,
job, boy.
Yeah, and this kind of leads into another thing too, like a cultural thing, which is very real, you know, within the Black community.
Oh yeah, that's not.
Yeah, like hunting, you know, outdoorsmanship. It's not that prevalent, especially. I mean, I think if we stayed in Winston-Salem, and we stayed in North Carolina, I think
it's there
because that was the culture.
It's widespread.
Yeah, because I wasn't a stranger to it. Like 3 or 4 of my friends were avid hunting families. Like, they had rifles and stuff.
White.
They were though. That's what I'm saying.
No, they weren't black. They weren't black guys. Right.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like, it's not a cultural black.
Yeah.
We got to Florida, got around our family, my dad's family, so we were even more.
And it was more city
guys.
Florida is super far south, but it's weird. The further south in Florida you go, the less it's its own weird thing.
Yes, it's its own culture.
It's its own culture. But the further north Florida you go, the further it becomes more traditional. South,
like
southern.
Keep going up.
Right. Yeah. So anyways, all that being said, you know, when it comes to the tack thing, I just had no context. And during my little rabbit hole deep dive on YouTube, I'm like, I'm seeing these like nice edited. Yeah, exactly. And I'm seeing these like, I don't know who it was. It could have been Chris B or the big, whatever. It might have been.
Yeah, Chris B.
And it was the Big Sky like tack event, with all these edits. And it's just these guys on a trail, which I was already, my wife, she's really got me into camping and hunting and just more camping and like hiking and stuff. Yeah. And so all that tied in together. So I'm like, dude, you're doing these like awesome, like hikes essentially, and you're almost playing like golf with a bow.
That's exactly
these amazing views. There's like a village with all the vendors and food trucks and tent and camping and beer. I was like, dude, that sounds fire. I'm like, I sent it to him. I'm like, yo, is this what you did? And he's just like, bro, that's what I was trying to tell you. And I'm like, oh snap. So I was like cemented at that point. And then I was really bouncing things off of him of like, what was the play? Like, what was the move? And I knew, again, this is what I meant. You have to be pretty self-aware because this will determine your level of buy-in, right?
Because you don't want to regret it.
Yeah, you don't want to regret it because there are individuals who, it's like they feel like they think they're into something and then they jump in head first. And then they spend a bunch of money, and they're not as into it as they thought they were.
No, that's a fact.
But I had boxes that were just being checked off, and I think for us, it's like as we've gotten older and more responsibilities have come in, life has gotten busier. you know, our bonding in our early 20s was gaming. You know, it's all we could do. You can play online, especially when we were separated. Yeah, and it became a phone conversation while we're just playing Call of Duty or, you know, competing on a sport game or something. But this, as we found our way to Tennessee, my wife accepted a position. I'm finishing school here. We were, you know, close. And so now pretty much when we have free weekends, it's probably, I would say, once a month, maybe. We get together at some point.
At least once every 2 months.
Yeah, at least once every 2 months, you know.
Wake
And
up.
yeah, so it's one of those things where I was like, dude,
It gives us something to do.
we don't need an excuse because we'll text every day anyway. But like, this was just something even more special that we could share.
For sure.
My wife, who expressed a lot of interest in the front end, but she may be an example of what I'm talking about. But that's, you know, she's got a lot of other stuff going on, so that makes sense. But anyways, all that being said is like, I was then trying to understand the market of archery, and this guy, just like he was alluding to earlier, is probably the most money conscious. Like, he's super frugal. He'll spend big when he has to, but it's like that has to be the only option. And so I was really seeking his advice because this is something that is so new to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just go to a bow shop and get like the, you know, 3 or 4 year old bow. And he's like, it don't really work like that. You know, shops kind of rotate out new product, and, you know, and depending on what brand you go with, you know, Mathews offers a lifetime warranty. If you buy used, that doesn't really carry over to you.
Exactly.
And so at the time, a used VXR was around $600, just bare bow. And I thought that was going to be the play. Yep. And he's like, dude, I got like a lot of spare stuff I can toss you, so you don't have to really worry about components too much. Yep. And so that was going to be the move. But as I came around like peak, like they just announced the lift, Mathews did.
Yep.
Ultraview was kind of booming with the slider, and it was like there was this energy. I think COVID, it was like a spillover from, even though it was 2023 or 4, it was still like this energy around it that just felt like big. I don't know, you can speak to it. You've been in it way longer than me, but it just felt like I was
a long time. But yeah, it was definitely COVID
going
was
up,
launching it up like this for sure. Just everybody would say that. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
Yeah, and so it just felt like I came in at this amazing time in terms of like the developmental stage. Like a lot of things were like brand new and awesome, and so there was a lot of energy around it. And I just started thinking like, well, if I'm already spending $6, I can just save the other half, a little more patient, get the warranty.
And that was around your birthday.
Yeah, exactly. It was getting close. It was close. It was getting close to my birthday. Yeah, and so they ended up, I didn't know, but they ended up talking privately and thinking, you know, hey, we could just get together and come together and split the other half. And, you know, and I was able to get my hands on the, at the time, brand new lift. And I settled on the 33 based on the style of shooting I knew I was going to do.
Yep. TSO, here we come. Don't worry about it. Some indoor 20-yard dots.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's for another day.
Yeah, but that was it, man. And then, so for me personally, to get back to the initial question, I understood that this was something I was going to be in for the long haul, just because it ticked so many boxes for me.
Yeah. And he had been shooting, as he said, I think he already said it, but he had already been shooting a different bow that I was able to lend him. Fit to him, that he was comfortably able to shoot for about 3 months as well.
Right.
So we kind of had a little cheat code there in regards to shooting and seeing if he was actually going to go out and shoot. So it kind of cut the middleman out in regards to the testing. So it it checked the boxes in regards to like socially what he would want to be involved in, but then in regards to the physical, like learning the craft, picking it up and actually having like a skill to still develop. I think especially as an adult, like sometimes our jobs end up trying to be that in regards to that competitive, like how do I get a little bit better at something? That's why I always like in the videos would be better. Cause like in my mind, I always want to feel like I'm progressing, but everything doesn't always have a linear movement. So if I can create that in my own life, I don't have to seek it in my job. I can just be present and be the best I can be at my job, even if it doesn't require me to continue to get better. Now my job does because of my field that I work in, but with like when you're showing up, just making sure you're a manager, making sure that people are doing whatever they need to do. I think having the sport, which is what kind of resonated with Tripp in regards to our conversation that we've had before, it was, man, like I can do this just like we used to do baseball. Like we used to do tee work religiously until your hands want to fall off. And so like with that same type of tee work, we could use that athletic kind of competition mind and use that same type of development to say like, I want to get better at this, and now how do I break this down, and how do I get a little bit better at this? Like just yesterday we were shooting and we were talking about it. Like, man, there's phases that you can kind of get to. It's like, man, I'm KO Kid in regards to like going KO Kid and DBZ. I'm Goku leveled up to that. Oh man, I just learned how to turn Super Saiyan. Now I get to identify. Hey man, I'm Super Saiyan 2. Now I can identify and fix. And so it's like there's always those like tiers in regards to like shrinking the margins of your good and your bad days. And I think that's where when he got a taste of that in regards to archery, and he was like, man, I can have that in my adulthood, and I don't have to go sign up for an adult league baseball that I barely have time to make it out to and actually practice, where I can do this in my backyard. And then when we get together, we have another thing. It was like a double whammy for us, and especially for Tripp, like in the story. Just wanted to highlight that. So yeah.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I didn't even. That was one of the boxes that I kind of alluded to.
Yeah, exactly.
Was
that's
like,
why I just kind of
it's like we grew up. Early on, it was baseball for both of us. As William got a little older and started to physically develop and needed more of a. Baseball is very cerebral, and there's a lot of built-up tension that you can't release. And William needed that release. He needed that release that football provided him. And so I was career baseball though, and there was a lot of carryover to, like you said, to just the repetition and the drilling of like hitting, tee work, even just the feeling of being outside in your backyard and just shooting a few hundred arrows, to just watching your swing and watching the path of the ball, that backspin going to the back of the net. It was so similar to just, you drawing back, clean break, and watching that arrow, go right where you wanted it to, and you're just trying to hit X's, tens and X's. So there was just a lot of that crossover where I was like, oh, this seems so new but familiar at the same time. And it really did. It gives me something to like, kind of work towards and get better, not to mention just our competitive nature. So, he's got a 4-year, 5-year jump on me, so I'm chasing that. But he also allowed, because of that advantage of being that far ahead, he's allowed me to fast track. My progression in a year, to me, has been amazing. Like when I watch old videos of like when I first started shooting, very like punchy, very, just a lot of form stuff that just, it was, it's like, and to where I'm at now, just because of, like I said, bouncing off of him, and just I also shoot a lot. And so that's kind of where it kind of brings us to where we're at now. But
so like obviously you were just talking about the idea of just being outdoors and being with your wife and getting a bow and trying to figure that out. I am curious just from your take. I know we talked about a little bit before when you first started getting into it, because you used to give me a bunch of jokes. Man, I know who you voted for now. Just in regards to when I started saying I was hunting, I was feeding my family with the deer that I'm trying to kill. Like, this is the way I feed my family now. I'm trying to stay away from this. And you were like, man, this is wild. Then you started doing a deep dive on YouTube, and our conversations kind of changed along the way. But just as a new person, I think just for people that have been in the hunting community, sometimes we can lose perspective. Even in my 4 years, there are things that you were saying, I was like, dang, I haven't even thought about it that way. But I think your perspective, especially being a year in, just having the bow, not hunting yet, but looking to hunt this year. But just like from your perspective, what were some things that kind of stood out to you that were highlights that you're like, oh yeah, this was kind of weird. Still learning about this. This makes me icky, or whatever. Like kind of like what stood out to you.
Right. I mean, when you don't know, you don't know, and all you do is you have just stereotypes, right? And I think for me, like I said, I wasn't foreign to it. I would say third of my life was Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The culture was not foreign. But as you sort of, more of a city boy life, as we lived in Florida and stuff, you kind of grow detached. You have an understanding, but there's still a detachment. So when you were, at the time, what was hot pop culturally in terms of the stereotype of like, Southern country boy, it was, the Duck Dynasty, long beards, camo, every day you wake up, throw camo on, and it was just like, okay, my brother's getting into hunting. That was the community that I imagined him becoming immersed in. I got to add though, as a little side piece, is like, since coming into this, it's so, I would say it's probably like one of the most welcoming hobbies / spaces that I've ever, as a person that's into many hobbies, many things, it's probably the most inviting and inclusive I've ever seen or been a part of. So as black men in this space, I think, like you said, he agreed. It's something to speak to of just the warm embrace and welcoming to the archery and hunting in general. So but yeah, it is. There are some interesting things. The part that I love that was intriguing is the fact of, just like I said, with my wife and even him, it's the self-sustainability. When I get my gym bro on, and you want your source of protein, and the way these animals are being slaughtered, injected with all these hormones and by antibiotics, all this stuff. There's a lot of chemicals that we're putting in our body versus going out. I joke with my brother all the time. I call it grocery shopping. Honey season's grocery shopping. It's time to go get that.
I think you got that from me.
I'm pretty sure I said that.
No, that was
I'm 100% saying
because I always say that.
You got it from me.
No, whatever.
100%.
Keep going.
It's okay. Anyways, but that's what I found intriguing about it. The idea of, like, my wife, she's been growing our vegetables, which is great. We make plenty of salads, potatoes, things like that. And if I could just add in the other layer of, like, providing the protein for the year, to me, that's like the ultimate, like, this is awesome. And obviously you got an expensive, tool. These are weapons that we use for recreational use because we enjoy it. But at the end of the day, they also are designed to do a thing. I have felt on my rest to make that arrow, make this bow as quiet as possible, to make it efficient at killing a deer. So
we did felt
because we were that was the thing. We knew the end goal.
I was like, bro, we got to put this on. You're like, that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
And you were about to put the whole block. I was like, no, we got to cut it.
I didn't. I knew the goal, but I didn't understand. Yeah, so it's like, just to make this thing as efficient as possible at doing its job, and
almost 100.
Almost. So we're getting there. But like I said, coming into it, that was sort of the perspective. There are some things that are still interesting to me, culturally. I don't know if you
can highlight some of that.
Yeah. So
we've talked about it.
Yeah, like some of the stuff is interesting. I do think that it is kind of jarring. I still don't understand the level. Hot take. I don't want to offend, but there are people that I think are just they're serial killers that want to just kill. I'm like, yo, it's like they reference it. Oh, he's a killer. He just goes and kills. And for me, a long time, and this is ignorance too. I kind of knew a little bit about animals, but he corrected me. For a long time, I didn't know. I thought it was a bad thing. Humans weren't supposed to eat predators. The eating of the usually the plant eating animals, where we get the nutrients and stuff like that. It's a safer protein for us to eat versus like the enzymes and stuff that predators have to break down all the bacteria and stuff. From what I understood, we weren't so bears, big wild cats, things like that. Things that these people are like, oh, it's the season, I'm gonna go kill a bear.
Yeah, we gotta manage that.
That makes sense from a standpoint of,
and
like,
we still eat it though, but yeah.
Right, but that is the part I didn't know. That was the counter argument that I did hear. It was like, oh no, it's about sustainability, it's about regulating populations, and we're just doing a thing, because we enjoy the nature element. So I kind of understood that argument. But then there's other things where I'm just like, I don't know, man. Big game. It gets weird, man. It gets weird, and that's the thing I'm trying to, like, really figure out. But again, that's just, you like it, I love it, but that's stuff that I'm still trying to process on my own. But like I said, the self-sustainability aspect of it, like going out, killing deer, annually.
Harvesting.
I like that term too. We joked about that too. It's a good word. And I'm not this like, I'm not this like softy, whatever. I honestly, before any of this, I couldn't even, to be honest, care less. Borderline sociopathic kind of. It was like,
you're like, whatever,
that animal, I feel nothing. But when it does get into a point where I'm like, I get it. These bows are awesome. We spend a lot of time, money, and effort into tuning, getting what we want. And you want to use it for what it's for. And a lot of this community, you've heard it. I hate shooting paper. It's like, all right,
I love it. But
I love it too. I do too. So it's like, but I get it. They want to get out there. They want to use it. They love the, like, challenge. But to me, it's like, at what point are you still eating all this? Like, I'm driving to Idaho. I'm flying out here. I'm doing all this. It's like, that's great. And then your wife's getting upset because taxidermy, getting these animals stuff. You can't put them in the house anymore. So now you're just killing to kill it. Sorry my language, but it's like, that's where it gets all like, you know, and I get it culturally too. I think we talked about. It's like if that was the community, and it is sort of a bravado, braggadocious. This is the buck I killed, or this is the bear I killed, or this is the elk I killed. It's like I would be. I totally understand who's got the biggest balls in the room. There's just an inherent trait in men, you know, that want to compete, and that's a way of competing.
For sure.
And they're like, hey, I'm out here in the sticks, and I took the time and invested in whatever curating of the land or the feed, or you know, I've talked to this landowner and I've done the homework, and I got out there and I got the biggest thing I could get. That part makes sense. Yeah. I still think there's some closeted serial killers, man. I'm like, yo, that's just me personally. But again, love the community, loved going out to TAC. Super awesome. Had some reservations a little bit, just being completely honest. And he put a lot of those to rest. He's like, dude, you're gonna be amazed. And like, people just approach you. Yeah. You know what I mean? In this community, it's like, hey man, it's like, you know, if I wear a Mathews hat, you know, you'll be amazed on who's like, oh man, you shoot, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you start talking, and I got to tread carefully because I've yet to like actually hunt. Yeah. So usually that's where the conversations go versus like shooting.
Public or private? Yeah. Neither.
It's like, man, I shoot this thing at 100 yards and I'm trying to keep my group small. That's the topic of conversation for me at this point until I can get out there and harvest some deer. But yeah, that's a newbie entering into the space, been in here for a year now, and that's sort of like, you know, my take and what I've witnessed, you know.
I love it. So. I guess if I could ask one more question, just to wrap it up, when we talk about archery, we talk about the idea of competing. We talk about the idea of just trying to be a little bit better. You talk about hunting maybe one day. So we kind of touched on some ideas of kind of like future of hunting. I know earlier I talked about TSO, like which is for those that don't know, TSO is Tennessee Shootout Series, I believe is what it stands for. Yep. It's a local indoor shoot. Mark and goodness gracious, I cannot remember the wife. I'm so sorry. Rhonda. But with all of that, like they do a great job putting on some stuff. I actually have a video that I've posted about it, just highlighting what they've done. They did not ask me to do that. I just thought with the quality of which they were doing, I had to put my phone out and start recording stuff. Like I literally had no plans of doing it until I saw it, and I was like, man, they do great work, and I think this needs to be highlighted. With that being said, they do a lot of local stuff, not just in Tennessee. It's actually on the east, north, south, goodness gracious, west, east. It is east, out east. So we actually, I think it touches on like 7 or 8 different states at this point, and it's just been growing over the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, where it has a lot of different shooters at a lot of different ages. So us as adults, we get to participate. The focus is for the students, but they do have an open class that actually has a kickback in regards to payment, which is what I was able to qualify for, and actually got 3rd this year as my first year competing, our last year. But with all that being said, not to plug any other videos, which I did. You're welcome, William.
It's your own channel. You can plug yourself.
But with all of that being said, I guess, like, can you touch on some of the things we've talked about in regards to future, your use case? Like, is this something that you want to compete in? Is that the reason why you went with the 33? You kind of touched on that as well, but just kind of like give me the full picture of what you're thinking about there.
Yeah, so, I mean, we feel like we're beating a dead horse with our competitive nature. Growing up, that's what we did. It's what we love to do. It's what brings us joy. Getting better at something, again, brings us fulfillment. So, yeah, that was one of the big reasons. Toggle Robbie, he was like, yeah, 33.
Yeah. Robbie's the guy that we buy our bows from at Benton Archery Supplies out in
awesome dude. Probably outside of my brother, like I love, like I fully trust touching, working on my bow. Super awesome guy. Shout out to him. But yeah, no, 100%. Like that's definitely the direction I want to get in. Like that was the plan, was to shoot competitively. Okay. Almost first, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
I just want to make
sure. Before I even got out, you know, in the sticks or in a tree, you know, it was 100%. I'm gonna shoot to compete in something. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that my skill level was at my base was at a level that I felt comfortable at competing. Sure. I didn't want to get in there and like, some people say doing it, throw yourself into it is the best experience, best way to learn. That's not the best way to learn for me. That's the best way to get discouraged for me. So I wanted to make sure that my fundamentals and my base level of skill was at a certain point before I decided to enter the arena of competitive shooting. And then sort of the falling down the black hole, I've already kind of thought about the title and all that stuff, but right now, it's like, but see, again, that's me though. I know I'm comfortable with the level of investment because I know.
But that's also why we got the 33 though.
For sure. There's no rush anywhere, but I'm just saying in terms of like, but yeah, shooting competitively, just as like, something to do honestly for fun. Even though I compete, I'm a pretty. I joke, but I'm a competitor. I'm pretty fierce, when it comes to that. So
for sure.
Like I said, I just wanted to make sure that my legs were underneath me before I tried to run, and I think I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I feel good.
Do you think you're gonna try to jump into the paper only or the 3D side of things? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Honestly, I think paper first.
Okay.
I just like the controlled environment element, like it stays the same.
Yep.
It's like this is your
lost.
skill. Yeah, you
Or
lost
you won.
because you lost.
Yeah.
Like there's no other variables. I do think that, when you look at 3D and outdoor stuff, there's just so many other variables that come into play. And I think those shooters and people who shoot well are just good at adjusting to those elements.
Yeah.
Versus shooting paper, it's like there's no wind, there's no nothing. It's like maybe your bow out of tune, maybe, but like other than that, I mean, it's 20 yards, so it's as much on you as anything could be. So that's probably the most intriguing to me right now. So
For sure.
I think that's where I'll start, and
Cool.
Going from there.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Now,
For
but
sure.
So
now tell us about your bow. What are you shooting? What's been? And obviously we gave the whole backstory, but what are you shooting?
Do you want me to hold, or do you want to do B-roll on top of the conversation?
No, you can definitely talk to it. Yeah.
All
Just
right.
pick it up.
Yeah.
We'll highlight whatever we need to highlight.
So yeah, this is my baby right here. I got the, I guess now because there's 2 generations of it. I have the first gen Lift 33. I love this bow. I was on the fence with the 29. I was wanting to, admittedly, I wanted the bow to be as optimal as possible. I felt like my draw length is interesting. I do have long arms. I'm only about 5'10", maybe 5'11", depending on the shoes.
You're standing next to.
Yeah, and 5'9" if I'm super barefoot and if the ground's on. Anyway, 5'10". But I do think I have a relatively long draw length, broad shoulders, long arms, what have you. But anyway, so my draw length is 29.5. Yep. Put me in between where I feel like I could shoot either and get the best performance out of either one. But
what pounds did you have it set up?
So this is set at 75 pounds right now. I started off at 70. I was pretty nervous at first, as a lot of people are, with what they can draw back comfortably, especially at high volume with certain with high reps and stuff like that.
So
that I wanted to do.
At 60, didn't you?
No, I started at 70. Yeah. I drew it back. Yeah, those were the first mods I got. Because I drew it back and I was like, oh, this is.
Oh, that's right, because you went to 75 after. Right. You're like, why did I start with 70?
Exactly. So I went to 75 and I was like, this is not trying to be all meatheadish, but it was easy, and credit to Mathews. Apparently, I've only drawn at maybe a handful of bows, but it's a relatively smooth 75 pounds. So it doesn't, even with the lift, and they say this is a very aggressive cam, which it is to other bows that I've drawn, but it still feels good, and I can shoot a few hundred arrows before I'm like begin to break down. I'm like, okay, I'm done. But yeah, so the Lift 33, running the UV slider. I bought this. This was almost bougie. I joke around. This is sort of the influencer special. It's kind of got all the goodies from all your favorite YouTubers. I got the UV, the B-Real 2.0 grip. Initially when I first started using it, it was an adjustment. It is pretty wide and meaty on the back. So going from the Engage grip, where I had to really figure out my placement because my left and rights went crazy when I first put it on. But I did like the feel. I loved, the shelving. I loved, based on my finger, it allowed me to just rest up there, like, it felt great. So I wanted to stick with it, and I kind of had to figure out my placement, my hand placement. But so run the UV slider, love it, love the ergonomics, love the simplicity of it. When I first got in it, I joke all the time of how complex sights seemed to me when I was just ignorant to it all. It was like, oh, you know, the sundial Allen key, twist to the left and toss the grass in the air, see if you're going right, then, you know, smell the air, and then you got to twist the Allen key, then break it loose, and then twist it, there you go, and then blah, 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 and sight tapes I didn't understand how you got a sight tape, but with the UV coming into it, not only was it refined for, you know, shooting at further yardage, because it was a sliding sight. It was also just very simple for someone just getting into to really contextualize and understand. Like, this is your windage, right, left. This is your yardage. Simple. All on the same knob. No knuckle busting areas. Boom, boom. So I love it. A lot of people had gripes with the pin brightness. I've yet to really experience like that issue.
Now he's been shooting midday.
I've been shooting midday, but even then, even when, you know, in super shaded areas, you know, I'm not shooting, you know, early morning or late.
No,
night,
that's more so what I meant. A lot of those gripes end up coming from like hunting.
Different
even with when I use the UV scope, the one I got from TAC that first year or second year or whatever it was.
You did have some issues.
Yeah, I just didn't enjoy the sight picture early morning because I remember I drew back just to see what it would look like, and I tried to like put it, and it just was. Well, it was just a black rail.
I got you. I got you.
And I don't like thinking about a light.
I got you.
But that's not a knock them. They said they fixed it in the new one too. But
so that's the other part too, is like, I know I bought it, I think maybe like it wasn't right at launch. It was a few months after they had released it. And I remember on Archery Talk, there were people saying that there was a new batch where they improved the fibers to improve brightness. Like I said, I've yet to experience, based on my limited shooting in daylight, but I've shot in ranges of lighting. Shot in super shaded, super dark, and I've shot early morning, sun beaming down. With those variables, I've yet to, you know, experience anything. But that's just me personally. I know everyone has different needs and stuff like that. Running the MX2 Ultra Rest, again, like I said, influencer special, just kind of everything, you know, that Mathews sort of the catalog, right? Got running the bridge lock stabilizers. When I first got the bow, I shot at bare bow for maybe 2 or 3 months. And that being the 33, it was just super stable. I didn't really, and I also didn't really understand how stabilizers worked.
It helped,
So it was good for me to just sort of shoot without it and really get an understanding of the bow and how it reacted and all that good stuff. But eventually I got the 12-inch on the front and I put the 10 in the back. And I was just running 2.2 because I still was trying to figure it out. When I did put the 12 and 10 on the back, I did experience just the stability, just the added weight alone. It made it a little more steady. And then obviously with, you know, the weight being a little further out front, and I took 1 off of the front and then added 3 to the back at the time. And it was like, you know, and I'm trying to remember the degrees that I have it set to.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, but we don't have to get into that. But right now, this is right. And then I went, as this year they released the 15-inch. So I went to the 15, just to get the weight further out in front, just add more stability, slow that pin float down as much as I could. And this thing holds great. And I know at this point, like, it's me when I miss. But gas bowstrings. Hamsky Raptor Peep. The one little, I did add the brass. I can't remember the guy's name. Credit where credit is due. You know, I know everyone, especially in the archery community, loves the individuality, making their bow their own and stuff like that. So it is sort of a cool thing to do that. But this guy, like, he takes great photos. I think it's like, can't remember his name. Robert, not Gallardo. I can't remember. Something, Zach Gallard or something. Anyways, amazing photos. He did the brass with the earth, and I thought that looked incredible, so I added that on for my own little personal taste.
As he said, he likes the way things look.
Yeah, I'm a huge aesthetic person, man. To me, this is like, when this bow is sitting in the corner of my house or in my room or, you know, garage or the car or something, if you don't enjoy the look of something, it's not gonna pull you to want to use it. Some people, I get it. I'm like that. If I have a bike or a car, if it looks like a POS, you're not gonna, there's no pull. But when I have this thing sitting somewhere, it's like I have to like pick it up, or just I break my neck kind of looking like, dang, you know. And so yeah, aesthetics are huge for me. And yeah, I think that's it. And then the Engage Exo limb legs, got them in the earth color. FOMO bit me. It was limited, and
They got you.
They got me. And
Mathews, well done. You did your job.
Yeah, marketing is crazy. But anyway, I also think it looks good.
Looks awesome.
Yeah, with the
looks awesome
color match and everything.
So obviously he still has his attack thing on there. We were able to actually get out to do that this year as well. Not to linger any more on story time. I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of other videos with him in it. But yeah, just want to have a little introduction to who Tripp Alderman is, my big brother, as you guys can see, just from him sharing his heart with how he was looking at being a big brother. I think that's awesome, and it makes my heart just that much more happy to even hear that story from that perspective. But with that being said, yeah, get out, shoot your bow. Don't forget to be better. And yeah. Appreciate you guys for watching. If you made it this far, praise God.
I ramble, man, especially when it comes to stuff I'm interested in.
Nah, that's all right. That's all right. And legit, I'm just happy. Happy we get to do it together. So I appreciate you guys. Be easy.
Peace.
We out.